know not everybody comes to social work the same way, but I know you and we talked a little bit before this about how we wanted to help people when we came to this profession. But then there was like a moment where we learned about all the different ways that social workers have been complicit in oppression or contributed to it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can talk a little bit about your experience about learning all those things and then how you
Yeah,
some of your initial thoughts and reactions.
sure. So I was thinking about this and like the dates and timelines and everything, and I realized how long I've been like it doesn't seem that long, but when you look at the numbers, it's been a while. So I was in my SSW program back in Toronto. And that was around like 2014, 2015, towards the end of the program. The specific campus that I was at, they started kind of talking about the blanket ceremonies and kind of exposing my cohort to the historical part of what social work looked like. And for me, that was always kind of like it felt backwards. I'm like, we're at the end. Why are you kind of now just touching on like that piece of it? For me, it was kind of twofold because yes, you got the experiential learning of it, having gone through like the blanket ceremonies and seeing what actually happened, but also having those in-class conversations about what social work was intended to look like and then what they actually ended up doing. Yeah, having that conversation, but then in hindsight, looking back now, I related to it more than I realized in terms of being from an island where the people that I grew up around, the people like my people, we were stolen from somewhere else and taken to another place. So like it's that same idea of someone coming and invading the land that I was originally from and kind of displacing me. So like there's that disconnect for me in terms of not really sure where my actual family origin is from. Like, are we actually from this island or were we somewhere else? So like that conversation kind of flows through life for me. But like in relation to this, some people ended up leaving the program because they started learning these things. For me, it was I could do good here. Like yes, it was something that I disappointment, but also I wasn't surprised because of my own history. I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like this kind of, paints that picture of why things look how they look now and why certain words are used and why certain conversations happen in the classroom, outside the classroom in general, and why certain agencies feel a bit more oppressive than others. Yes, you know the history, but I feel like it's what you do with what you know that kind of changes how you survive in it. And for me, that was kind of the change of perspective as a Black woman. Like I could have chosen to walk away and say, this is a messy space. I don't want to stay in here and I don't want to, add to the mess, because that was also a part of it that I struggled with, like, am I perpetuating the same history that people have, gone through? And I think the more I stayed in and then moving to Ottawa and, going into my actual undergrad, I realized that there was more that I could do and do it differently. So creating my own mosaic of, doing social work, for lack of a better word. Yeah.
Yeah, there are people in this field trying to carve out that space to kind of change things, right? But you do have to
Yeah.
kind of hunt a little bit further. You have to go a little bit further into the field to find it.
Exactly. And that's what it is, right? So it's like the initial stages, I kind of look at it as, well, one prof that I had back when I was in my SSW program, he was my sociology prof, and he made it very clear. He's like, if you're in this field for money, you're in the wrong field. So we lost a couple people there. And then when we started doing like history of social work, history of like all those historical like intro courses, there are some white people in the classes that they didn't necessarily have the most comfortable introduction, because like having those hard conversations about like white privilege and unpacking their own biases, and like those conversations were hard for them. But also not just them, like there were parts where I kind of had to, like, I realized like I do have some privilege of being like an immigrant woman here. I had to like sit with myself and be like, as an immigrant woman here, like I have more privilege than a lot of our indigenous folks, and like it's sitting with that and then deciding for myself, like, what am I going to do with this privilege that I have? Like, am I going to disregard it as something important, or am I going to use it to try to better the society that we live in, better the, just life in general towards that issue that exists that a lot of us like to pretend don't exist.
That's definitely like the way I look at my own privilege a little bit as well, where I'm starting to realize I didn't choose it necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little bit of a waste, I think, to feel guilty about it
Mm-hmm.
because it's something that I can use.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And for me, it's kind of like a motivating factor to kind of not necessarily stick to the basic parts of social work that we learn in school, or that we're taught through different professional development courses or anything. For me, that's where like that whole intersection piece comes in, because I'm like, I have my own experiences that I can bring to the table. I have my own lived experiences versus schooling experiences that I can spin and help my clients or whoever I'm working with, or whoever I encounter on a daily basis, to like understand the world that we live in and just help them to hopefully, achieve something better, depending on what the scenario is. But like it's me being able to give of myself in a way that they'll understand, as opposed to kind of just spitting clinical jargon at them.